So my name is Sam Petto. I'm the ACLU Nebraska Communications Director, and that means probably 9 times out of 10 or more what you see on our Facebook channel, Instagram, Twitter, or media statements comes from me. So it's my goal to help move our mission forward through education, advocacy, and awareness where it all starts.
hmm And yeah, okay, so today we're going to be focusing a little bit on the protests from this last weekend. A lot of stuff going on in downtown today. So if you just kind of want to talk about that a little bit, do you know how many people were arrested in total?
Sure. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but essentially, police met more calls for justice with a mass arrest, and things kind of spiraled out of control from there, from that point and from that decision. So we saw after these arrests, compounding computer problems at the Douglas County Jail that led to an extremely slow release process, even as people were able to post bail, such that we had some people who were booked at maybe 10:30 or 11:30 p.m. the night of the protest who weren't able to get out until as late as 9:30 the following night.
What kind of stands out to you about this situation, like about being unique to this weekend?
Unique to this weekend. Well, I hope what doesn't get lost in all the chaos and confusion is the fact that police had a choice in making this mass arrest. And in fact, that choice defies state policy. So it's written into state law that police should always err towards citations instead of arrests, unless there's some very specific circumstances. And we just did not see those circumstances that night. So police made a very intentional choice to do a mass arrest, bringing more than 100 people into a jail that fluctuates between about 1,000 to 1,200 people. So a massive surge at one of their quietest nights and quietest times. So that alone is shocking, uh, and I think should elevate everyone's concern. Beyond that, there are a whole lot of concerns. We've basically been working on this nonstop since the night of the protest, as we started to hear from protesters, family members, and friends. And so we're committed to looking at all those reports, poring over the video, media reports, speaking with protesters to determine every single circumstance in which there was a violation of a civil right or civil liberty, and making sure that we can make that right by holding people accountable.
Mhm, Definitely. And we've heard reports of people having limited access to toilets, like cells packed up to 45 people. Do you know how the conditions from this past weekend compare to other correctional facilities in the U.S. like after protesters are arrested?
I can't speak to that. I don't know the conditions after other, or if there have been similar circumstances with a mass arrest like this one. I think it does get to that point again that, Omaha police, they are familiar with what happens after you arrest someone, and they're familiar with the capabilities of Douglas County Jail. And it bears note that the Douglas County Jail's director very intentionally tried to reduce the number of people who are incarcerated in that jail during the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, that number dipped by 200 people, which is really significant for that jail in the initial months of the pandemic.
Mhm.
So when you get that massive influx of people who could have gotten a ticket, walked away, peaceably gone to their cars and gone home and been back at their home and with their loved ones at night, you end up in situations like that. And that is not to at all justify or say that it is right that you can have 46 people packed into a cell that ICE says can't hold any more than, I think it was 14 or 16 people. Obviously, that's concerning. Um, but we have to make sure we don't lose sight of the initial domino in this chain, and that was police choosing to arrest everyone.
Yeah. And so what are you working on right now? Following this weekend, like what's the ACLU working on going forward?
Mhm. So you're talking to me because our legal team has been working nonstop on this. So again, they are reviewing all of the video that we've received, both through our app, the Smart Justice app, and directly to our email. It's gethelp@aclunebraska.org. We are connecting with protesters. I personally have heard from family members and friends of protesters and then forwarded those on to the legal team. So right now, it's a really conscientious effort to try to get and a concerted effort to try to get a best picture of what happened that night, to try to identify and understand where civil rights and civil liberties were violated, and to make sure we hold people accountable. And I know that that can be a kind of vague answer, and unfortunately it has to be at this point in time. And I'm hopeful that we can share, you know, more substantial news and some progress toward that front here in the coming days and weeks.
Hmm. And like, do you have any plans like for future protests, like for anything like that you guys can do to prevent what we saw last weekend?
Well, accountability is the best measure to making sure something like that doesn't happen again. But I am glad you mentioned other things that we're doing. Part of our effort is also undoing the harm that these charges can bring as best we can. And so we have a freedom fund that we started with a $100,000 investment, and we've been making that available to protesters since the first initial Black Lives Matter protests in Omaha and Lincoln.
Mhm.
And that basically covers a cost of everything from legal representation to covering fines and fees if you need assistance getting transportation to a hearing, etc. And also for those protesters who think that what they'd like to pursue is to request what's called a set aside, or charge to try to get their charge dismissed, or to advocate for a mayoral pardon. We're holding a protester legal clinic specifically for charged protesters.
And yeah, do you have anything else to add about like what you guys are working on, or just like the events from last weekend?
Hmm. Well, first of all, I really appreciate the time, and I appreciate everything that noise does, because awareness moves our community. You know, when people know about what's happening, we see change because folks feel empowered to speak toward things that they think are wrong in their communities.
Mhm.
I think a lot of Nebraskans have a lot of concerns about what happened the night of that protest and how police chose to act and everything that came after the arrest. Um, so, you know, at the ACLU, it's a little cheesy, but we like to say that democracy is worth fighting for. And, you know, if you think about it and the moment that we're in right now, you know, that is kind of profound, is that democracy is worth fighting for and we need to fight for it. So for everyone, I can tell you that our legal team is working on this nonstop. We're committed to holding people accountable, and we're doing everything we can through our Freedom Fund, future in-person legal clinics, and outreach with partners to make sure that we are holding the people in power accountable, and we are protecting protesters' right to speak out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you so much for talking with me today. Yeah. Do you have anything, any last?
You know, I don't, but appreciate everything you do. Please don't hesitate to be in touch if you need anything down the road. And also know that while this is such an important inflection point in terms of this movement and racial justice as a whole in Nebraska, know that that fight is also happening at the Capitol right now. So this upcoming Friday, I believe, is when there will be a hearing on Senator Justin Wayne's police oversight bill that the legislature fortunately chose to suspend the rules so he could introduce.
Mhm.
So there are legislative options, and important legislature that's moving forward. So folks need to know that the march or the protest can't just be on the streets. We need to move that protest into policy to really force accountability and positive change for our communities.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And like, yeah, we're trying to do like kind of like a legal series, um, like showing how to get involved with that kind of stuff. But yeah, thank you so much.